Hello and welcome back to another Cambrian Live. Today is a lovely experience that we're going to be having. We're going to be having a nice big long chat with David Newton, who's going to be giving us a print presentation workthrough through his setup. And very excited to have him here as well. So lots of people commenting sort of beforehand. So nice to see that we've got some comments starting off. Obviously, if you are watching live, if you've got any questions regarding today, you can drop them in the description and we can get them throughout the day. Right, okay, without further ado, let's introduce Dave into this stream. He has given me the option of two screens here now, so I'm going to click on one of them and hopefully it's the right one. So here we go. And here, oh no, he's going to go out again. Go on, off you go.
No, go away. Oh, what?
Yeah, and then do your thing. And hello. Here he is, David Newton. Welcome.
This is me. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Ray, I've just spotted a question that I have literally got to ask straight away. Yes, I think he did do the haircut himself, and he didn't have a mirror.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not. I've got to keep absolutely straight to the camera as well. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention I've had a haircut, and it hasn't gone very successfully. And let's just leave it at that.
We'll just kind of move on beyond it, shall we?
Yeah, we certainly will. So, Dave, thanks for joining us today. It's wonderful having you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. As Paul said, everyone, I'm going to give you a kind of a workflow print demo, looking at some Canon software, Canon printer. And hopefully give you some tips and advice on how to make the most of your images, how to make them look great when you print them. Yeah, that's pretty much the plan, really. That's pretty much all there is to it.
And you've gone up another level as well, and you've got some multi-cameras and things on the go as well. So very, very envious about the sort of multi-camera streams that you're going to be showing us as well from a streaming point of view.
Yeah, there indeed are some multi-cam views. So there's obviously this one that I'm talking to you on. There is let's show you. There's this one. So you can kind of see the printer that I'm using. I'll tell you a little bit about this printer as we go. It's a IPF Pro 1000. We've also got the wider view. You get to see everything, including some of the mess of my desk. Not all of the mess of the room, just some of the mess of the desk. And obviously, we're going to be talking about software, so you kind of need to be able to see my screen. So I will be able to show you that as well. And because I'm going to feel super pimpy, I'm going to appear down here too. So you can see my screen and me, because otherwise looking at a screen for a while could be really boring. Although looking at me could also be really annoying. So, well, I'll leave it up to you. You could just kind of like blank out the bottom corner of the screen if you don't want to look at me for too long.
Yeah, just with your hand or something like that, for viewers there. Let's go to the comments. We're having some nice hellos from people. So hi, Steve. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Sarah. Sarah's joining us. Two Sarahs. Hi, Sarah again, and hi, Trish. It's lovely to have you on this live feed with us. And let us know that you're watching live, and you can place any questions that you have into the comments, and we will get to them. I've had permission to interrupt Dave as well, so any questions that you've got, we can just push them in generally anywhere through this live feed. But we will save some for the end as well, for a quick Q&A at the end as well. So, Dave, I'm going to let you crack on, bud.
Perfect. I'm going to actually start by saying, Sarah Jones, you've heard good things about me from Mr. Sanders. Yes, I pay Mr. Sanders a lot of money to say nice things about me. He's too kind. But for those of you that don't know Paul Sanders, definitely go check him out if you like moody landscapes. He is incredible. He does a lot of stuff with Cambrian as well, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, thank you all for joining. And as Paul said, please feel free to ask questions as we go. I do not mind being interrupted. But we're going to start by talking just a little bit about workflow as an overall concept. And then we'll dive into the Canon software, and then we'll move on to the print side. So there'll be kind of like little sections or stages. Now, I'm assuming that most of you shoot in RAW. I think if you're looking to make the most of your pictures, you're probably going to be capturing your images in RAW rather than JPEG, because you get not more resolution, but you get more color depth. So there's a lot more color, there's a lot more detail, and chance to adjust the image if you get it wrong, or to really make the most of the image. And our first step is going to be getting the images onto a computer and opening them in some RAW software. Now, the software that I'm going to be showing you is Canon's DPP software. So this workshop, if you will, is paid for, sponsored by Canon, hence why this is a Canon workflow. I'm a Canon geek, so I will be talking to you about all of the Canon stuff. If you have questions about other things, I will do my best to answer them, but this is going to be very Canon centric. When we get on to the printing side of things, then very much more that's quite a bit more generic. Although I'll be looking at the Canon software and telling you how to make that work, a lot of the principles will translate into whatever software you're using. So step one, let's get this into the software. So the software I'm using is Canon's Digital Photo Professional, and that looks something like this. There we go, told you I'd be in the bottom corner. What we have is a nice layout here of our images, and up front I need to tell you that DPP predominantly is a global editor. It's not like Lightroom where you can adjust discrete parts of the image. They've started to add that in, but it's still quite early days. So think of DPP very much as a global editor. You are going to take your image and you're going to adjust the whole image. And then if you need to do independent sections of it, you're probably then going to take it into Photoshop to work there in more detail. The great thing about DPP is that it is developed by the same people that make the cameras. Canon are unique among all manufacturers in that they don't just make the cameras, but they make the sensors, they make the processors, excuse me, they make the software. And that gives them the control that other manufacturers don't have. It means that the guys who are making the software can sit next to the guys who are making the sensors and the processors in the camera and discuss exactly what they're doing. So they can go to the nth degree of making the absolute most of what that sensor can deliver, and they can use some of their secret sauce to try and make it as good as possible. Third-party software, things like Lightroom, for example, which is incredibly popular, or Capture One, they are trying to support many, many cameras from many different manufacturers. So while they're very good, they don't necessarily go into the finest detail of the RAW file to decode it quite as well in terms of color science, in terms of lens corrections, in terms of noise processing. They're very good, but they're not quite perfect. It's not saying DPP is perfect, but I think it's a step closer. Now, I'd equally say, don't necessarily jump over to DPP. Even if you're a Canon user, do not jump over to DPP straight away. If you're very happy in Lightroom with your cataloging and keywording, you're not going to get that in DPP. So maybe think of DPP, once you've seen what it can do, as a kind of get out of jail free card. If you want to switch over to it, great. It's free. It came on a CD, or you can download it from the Canon website in the box with your camera, hopefully. Should have been. If not, just go to the Canon support page and you'll be able to find it to download. And you could use it as I say, this get out of jail free card, where if you've got an image that you just can't quite get right in whatever RAW software you normally use, try throwing it at DPP and seeing how you get on. You may find it just saves your bacon, so to speak. So let's actually have a little look at DPP. So very simply, we've got a lovely layout here of images. You'll notice that some of them have got check marks, some of them have got star ratings. We'll talk about that in a while. I've got my folders down the side. This is where I find images. Now, once images get into the software, the first thing you want to do is to start working through them and trying to pick out the ones that are the best. Okay, this is not unique to DPP. This is akin to any software. You don't want to have to process all your images. You just want to find the real good ones. So in DPP, we have something called the Quick Check tool, which is up here in the top left-hand corner. Oh, let's not click that. There we go. Up here in the top left-hand corner, Quick Check. So I've selected all the images. I click Quick Check, and it opens them up in a nice full screen with a nice clear view. No real information over the image. It's all nice and clear. I've got my thumbnails down the bottom. And over on the right-hand side, I have got, I can select info, so I can see the information about the image. Let me zoom in here and give you that. So here is, your data about it: lens, shutter speed, aperture. Notice that I've put my author's name in there, or my name, my website, so that goes with the image wherever I go. I have also got the ability to show AF points. Now, this was taken on a manual focus lens, so it's not going to show up. But you'll notice here I've got check marks and star ratings. Okay. Now, the star ratings are what we call XMP compatible. So if I give it a star rating here, that will follow through to any other software that can read XMP data. So things like Adobe Bridge, if you give this 5 stars, it will show 5 stars when you process the image into and open it in Bridge. So you've got the choice. Either of the options will work. You can either go with your quick check, with your check marks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you can go with your star ratings, again 1 to 5. It doesn't really make much difference which one you use. I habitually use the check marks. Now I can work my way through using the keyboard, obviously, and I can give images ratings. So if some of these have been rated already. There's a collection that I put together of random images. So let's say I like an image, I give it a 1. The way I work is what I'd call reductive editing. So I go through, and all of the images, I just look in broad detail. Do I like the image? Is it immediately aesthetically pleasing? I'm not overly worried about the exposure. Obviously, if it's way off, then I'll probably ignore it. But as long as it looks vaguely okay, I'm not going to check for sharpness or anything at this point. I'm just looking at the image as a whole and deciding whether I like it or not. And it gets a 1. And then once I've been through, assume we've been through all of these now, and they've all got their check marks. Let's give this one a 1. You'll notice it appears in the top left-hand corner. As I come back out of the quick check, I have got these images that have a variety of check marks on them. So this one here you can see in the top left-hand corner, or maybe the star ratings that you can see down below. Now, what I would then do is I would collect all of the images by sorting. If we come up here to the top, oh wait, you'll note that I can sort by, let's say, check mark, and I can choose whether that's ascending or descending. And now all the images are arranged, and I'd go through and I'd collect these, for example, and then I'd go back into quick check and I'd work my way through those, and I'd then look in more detail. Is it sharp? Does the exposure look good? Those ones would get 2s. I'd then go through the same process, picking the ones out of the 2s that I like. And this feels like a very positive process. I'm not throwing things away. I'm selecting the best. So it's a positive mindset to the editing. Once they're all done, I've been through, I've collected the images that I want to work on. Then at that point, I can start working on them. And that's what we're going to do now. So we've done quick check. What I didn't show you very quickly in quick check was that you can zoom in, so you can get 100% view, this top right hand corner up here. If you choose a ×1, that gives you 100% view of whichever part of the image you wish to see, which is a really good way of judging focus. Now, I stress you never need to look at an image at more than 100% to judge focus. Anything beyond that is making up pixels. It's interpolating pixels. It's not telling you any more about whether it's sharp or not. So don't bother going to 500% to decide if your picture's sharp. If it's not sharp 100%, it's not sharp any more than that. Okay. So that was the bit I wanted to show you there. I also probably should have told you there's this histogram here, but I'm hoping you spotted this. and it's an RGB histogram. And if you don't put the info up over here, you can see we have got the basic information: shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and lens choice. Okay, so let's actually get into doing some processing, because selecting images is all well and good. I don't know if anyone has any views on which image they would like to see, but I'm just going to randomly pick one, and it'll probably be the one we'll work on to print as well. So I don't know, maybe we'll choose this one here. Okay, so I've selected an image, and you may have noticed up the top next to quick check, if I come up here, we've got an option called edit image. So if I click on edit image, that takes me into a screen where, again, I've got the full image. I can select multiple images and go in here. You notice I'd be able to have thumbnails down the side, but it's over on this right-hand edge that we're really interested in what is going on. This is where we're going to do our processing. I've just noticed somebody said pink dress. Lorraine, you said pink dress. So, okay, if nobody else has any other aversion to that, we'll come out of the landscape and we'll go to the pink dress. I'm assuming, Lorraine, that you mean this image here. I'll give you 10 seconds to say yes, if that's the one. Paul's jumping in.
Nice little challenging one there for the printer as well, isn't it? The color pink.
It is quite challenging, and also this dress. It's not dress. It's actually 4 meters of silk, and it was very expensive silk that I bought out in the Middle East, and it's just wrapped around her. But it's a chiffon silk. It's two-toned silk, so it's got that. It's kind of blue one side, pink the other, and it has. Let me open this up. Come on. It has like a satiny sheen to it, which, yes, is quite challenging for a printer to handle. So a good, challenging choice.
Good choice,
Lorraine.
there.
Well done. Okay.
Just before you get started there, Dave, I think we've got a little bit of a click on your end, just maybe from your speakers, possibly.
Oh, really? An echo going on?
Just ever so slightly, just a small one.
Okay, fair enough. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can figure that out. Hold the line, caller. I'm going to give you me to look at rather than looking at the screen. And I'll see whether I can work it out. I'm wondering whether I've got
with my hair.
Is open of Chrome. And
I think maybe if you just...
Okay.
Yeah, that's better now, I think.
Is that better?
Still a little bit there. I think if you just turn down maybe your audio.
So when you want to talk, Paul, you just appear. I'm going to mute your end, so I won't be able to hear you. As soon as you want to talk, you just appear, and then I'll know to bring you back again.
Yep, sounds good. Cheers, bud.
Problems fly. Okay, let's get back to where we were. Okay, so I'm glad you like the image, Lorraine. There we go. Right. Hopefully everyone agrees. So we've got a fairly challenging image, but we need to start processing it. So step one of processing an image is we want to look at the brightness. Okay. So I'm going to have a look up here in this top right-hand corner and look at the histogram. And I like to look, particularly with an image like this, I like to look at the RGB histogram, not just a straight brightness, but I want to know what's going on with the color channels. Particularly because of the pink in this image, I need to be aware of this red color channel, because if it's a bit too far off, I'm going to struggle to hold that in a print. Instantly, it looks okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down up here, sorry, bottom left-hand corner, I've got shadow highlight alerts. Okay, so the shadow highlight alert, I can choose my values. There we go. And this will give me a blue or red, depending on whether it is overexposed or underexposed, and so that I can see where I've got blocked up or blown out shadows and highlights. Now, I set these values to 3 and 253. And the reason for that is I know that if I go down to 0, the printer probably can't hold it. If I go up to 255, the printer can't hold it. But at 3 and 253, I'm pretty certain that the printer can hold detail in those areas. So they're my settings. And what will happen if I get rid of that and just adjust the brightness? I'm going to take the brightness up and we should see, there we go. So it's obviously way bright now. And we've now got these areas that are showing us overexposed. And if I go back the other way, we've now got obviously massively underexposed. That whole left-hand side of her hair is dropped down, blocked into shadows. But actually, not to blow my own trumpet, I'd say I didn't do a bad job straight off the bat. So I think probably about there. It's about half a stop up from where I shot it. Probably looks about right to me on my screen. And this is probably a really good point to make this point. Your screen is incredibly important. Okay, you can't expect to do any brightness or color adjustment on a screen that's not calibrated. It is the fundamental step one of any workflow. You want a decent screen, as good a screen as you can get. And in my opinion, it's pretty much as important as a camera and a lens in your entire workflow, because otherwise you never know if the image that you're looking at on screen is actually how it's supposed to look. And I'm sure you've all had the experience of printing images and discovering that they don't look like they did on screen. Usually, step one for that is because you don't have a calibrated screen. So I'm using an ISO, it's an ISO Color Edge CG319X. I'm fortunate enough to be an ISO ambassador, so I get to use some of the really great screens, and this one has got a built-in calibrator. I don't even have to worry about doing it. It calibrates itself every 100 hours or so in the middle of the night when I'm asleep. It turns itself on, does a little calibration so that I know that every time I come to the desk, it is always absolutely bang on. Anyway, I'm looking at my screen here and it's looking pretty good to me. So brightness adjustment is step one, and this is the first of several tabs that we're going to look at. You'll notice below that we've got white balance options. So these are all the same white balances that we would have in the camera in terms of daylight and shade and cloudy, tungsten, fluorescent, flash. We've also got color temperature and click white balance. So if you put a gray card in your image, or perhaps if I zoomed up to 100% here on the image, and I have a little look at this section here. There we go. Look at the eyes. I could quite possibly do my click white balance and click on the white of her eye. And that would probably not be too bad a choice, because the white of an eye, provided somebody doesn't have really yellow whites of their eyes, otherwise you get a very blue feeling image. The whites of the eyes are usually quite a good space on a person for a bit of white balancing. So click white balance. Now I've also got the ability, if I zoom back out here, to choose some fine tuning for that white balance. So this is kind of adjusting the white point. I've got amber and blue. Let me zoom in over here, and I've got magenta green. And you may have recognize this from your Canon camera, because many of the Canon cameras will have this built in, so you can do an adjustment in the camera if you like. If you think the images are always a bit too blue or a bit too amber, you can adjust it. Or, as I say, we can do it here. Generally, it's not something I use very much of, because I've either got a grey card in an image, or I can find something that works, and I'm quite happy with the way the colours come out for me. Below that, I've got something called Auto Lighting Optimizer. This is great if you're using flash or you have a backlit subject. It tries to even out the contrast and the tone. I use it occasionally. You've got 3 levels, so if I just flick through them, if we start at low, and then we try standard, and then we try strong. Some images it will have a big effect on. Some images will have a very minimal effect. So while it's on strong, I'll turn it off. And you can see what it did. It actually brightened the image a little bit and adjusted the contrast a little bit. I'm not... Oh, maybe it's not bad. Maybe we're going to leave it on for this one, but I'm going to knock it down to standard. Okay, then we have picture styles. Now, hands up virtually. How many of you use picture styles on your Canon cameras? I'm going to probably assume that the majority of you don't. Most people, when I ask this question, say no, look at me blankly and have no idea what picture styles are. They are in-camera processing, about a bit like choosing a film. So landscape is a bit like choosing Fuji Velvia. Portrait is like choosing Kodak Portra 160 NC type deal. Monochrome is obviously black and white. You've got neutral and faithful. You may use neutral. You'll probably never use faithful. And then there's standard as well. Now, each of these give you a certain adjustment. And the fact that we're using a raw file means that we can actually change it afterwards. So, you know, I can pick and choose any of these. And what happens, the reason I really like DPP for this is because third-party software pretty much ignores this. You can apply it later, but by default, you'll probably take a picture on the back of the camera. It will have some kind of picture style applied to it, even if that's standard. And you'll go, oh yeah, that looks nice on the back of the camera. And then what will happen is you'll put that picture onto your computer. You'll open it in, let's say, Lightroom or Capture One, and it will look very flat and dull. And that's quite simply because they haven't decoded the picture style information. They've given you just a very flat response, okay? So picture styles are really useful. If you can get an image that looks great on the back of the camera, why would you then spend a lot of time trying to get back to that by using third-party software? It doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather it just looked great straight off the bat. So what I'll do, I'm going to flick through them. So if I go to standard and portrait, you'll notice that the skin tones change slightly. Landscape, the saturation's gone up, so her skin's got a little bit warmer. Generally, we avoid that. Obviously, you can look a bit jaundiced, but actually, in this case, it doesn't look too bad. And then let me show you monochrome here. This is black and white, but with that beautiful dress, we're definitely not doing black and white. There's also one called fine detail, and I'm quite a big fan of fine detail because it has similar contrast to standard, but works on a finer level, and it doesn't really have too much saturation put into it. So I'm going to actually go with fine detail for this one. And what you'll notice below here is that if I zoom in, I have got the ability to adjust things like contrast, shadow, highlight, color tone, and saturation. And these are the basic elements of picture styles, okay? Now, if I drag the slider, you'll see that it goes up in whole increments. But I can also just click up and down in 0.1 increments. And therefore make very fine adjustments. So let's actually show you what that looks like. Obviously, if I take the saturation up, it's going to get really very, very punchy. I think that's not so great. The watchword with these is generally be gentle. Don't drag the sliders all the way to the end unless you really absolutely have to, because you can end up making an absolute dog's dinner of your picture. So let's say that maybe I want a little bit of contrast on this. Let's try and take it up +1 and see what happens. That's not so bad. I've still got my shadow highlight warning on, so if I make an adjustment and it boosts the contrast too much, I'll see. And I will take the saturation up just a little, but I'm going to go up gently. And I think probably 0.8 is not so bad. Now, maybe you notice there's also unsharp mask down here. And sharpening should be a 2 to 3 stage process. You'll do sharpening in RAW, then you will do potentially some creative sharpening, so possibly sharpening the eyes more than the face, if it's a portrait, for example. And then you're going to do output sharpening, and that's going to be specific to whether you're printing on an inkjet printer, whether you're showing it on screen, whether it's going to a billboard, and how big that print or that showing is going to be. So I use unsharp mask. We've also got sharpness as an option. But unsharp mask gives you strength, fineness, and threshold. Now, this only needs to be a little bit because it's just the stage 1 of kind of removing the unsharpening that you would get through some or through the anti-aliasing filter or the low pass filter in front of the sensor. So we get a little bit of sharpening. It just makes the image sparkle a little bit. And that's most of this tab done. Now we're going to move into the tab above it in the tool palette here, which is this one. And this is a bit of Canon's secret sauce. So I'm going to click this and it's going to be able to let me do lens corrections. Now I know that many other software manufacturers give you lens corrections, but they're calculated, not measured. So Canon know exactly how all of their lenses perform at any given aperture, focal length on every given camera, and they can build that in because no lens is perfect, and digitally we can enhance the imperfections in any bit of lens design. Now, I should say this only works for Canon lenses, probably as you'd expect. They're not going to support my puppy's having a little bit of a meltdown in the background. Apologies for that. They're not going to support third-party lenses like Sigmas or Tamrons or the like. Always the way with live, right? My puppy out in the kitchen has decided he wants to have a little bark. So give me one moment and I am just going to tell him to be quiet. Otis!
Oh, we do love a good interlude. So, yes, I'll just. Oh, and he's that was quick, really very quick.
That didn't really work. He's been quiet all morning, and now he's really going for it. Give me 2 seconds. I'm actually going to go and tell him to be quiet. Hang on a moment.
Yes, just while Dave's sorting that out, if you've got any questions, just please put them in. I know we've had one from Anarin as well, which we will pop up just before we head into the print section of this live. So yes, we've got some people saying let's see the puppy. So we can request that maybe on Dave's return there. Might even anger the puppy even more though. So here we go. Dave, you back with us? I think we're just waiting for your sound to kick in. Oh.
I won't pick Otis up, but if you want to see the puppy very quickly, I'm going to dip out of here and... Oh no, I thought I'd put some in here, but I haven't. Okay, I guess I'll pick him up then. Here we go. Otis, come here. Come. Now he's going to run away. Of course he is. Otis, come. Okay. He's run away. Sorry about that. Sorry, Trish. I'll try and find you a picture of Otis in a little bit at the end if you really want to see him. There we go. Well, look, it seems like a natural pause point. So there's been a question. Anya and Phillips, I see you're using a dark grey background for processing. Some say you should have a white background for processing for print. Do I have a view? DPP gives a dark grey background, and I quite like a dark grey background. I think if you have white, you end up with a very bright screen around the image, and you can end up making your image a bit too dark. Equally, if you have black surrounding it, the image can feel like it's kind of recessing and you end up making it too bright. But I think a kind of a mid-grey, obviously it's very neutral, that gives you a better chance of getting the colours more accurate and getting the brightness more accurate, more importantly.
It kind of sets your eyes to where they need to be as well, doesn't it?
It does. With that said, what's very interesting or what's very important, and I got this tip from Cinema Color Graders, the monitor shouldn't be the brightest thing. So the room needs to be dark. Obviously, I'm struggling with that because I need lights for you to be able to see me. But when I'm editing, I will bring all the lights down in the room, and I have a lamp behind my desk, and it fires at the wall, and it's daylight balanced. It's not very bright, but my wall is white. And it means that in my field of view, the monitor is not the brightest thing. It means your eyes don't get as tired, and also it seems to help with brightness and color adjustment if you're going to sit at your computer for quite a long time.
That's a very nice, helpful hint. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I have, as I say, I've got a nice angle poise lamp just set low, pointing to the back wall behind the monitor. Right, there we go. Right. Let's crack on. and hope that Otis stays quiet again. I think he's gone outside. He's going to go terrorize the neighbors' dogs. So where were we? We were going to talk about lens correction. So let me come back into this lens correction tab. So Canon measure the performance of their lenses on all of their cameras, and they provide that information sometimes in the cameras. In fact, all of the recent cameras will have this lens correction data built in for a wide variety of lenses, but you can also apply it here. So over on the right hand side, you'll see I've got digital lens optimizer, and if it says lens data, yes, that's because I've already got it installed. But if I didn't, if I click this button here and zoom out, we'll see what happens. Here we go. Look at that. You see the background of what's going on. Go atom. Right. So in here, if I make this bigger, I can add or remove lens data. So I can go through all of the Canon lenses, and this is all of the data that's available for the camera that I'm using. In this case, that image was shot on an EOS R. And I can click it. Let's say that I shot with a 35mm f2 IS USM. I'd click that. And you'll notice down here I've got add one, and I hit start, and that will download that information into the software so that I can then make use of it. Right, here we go. So we're back where we were. So I've simply clicked Digital Lens Optimizer, and what you can see is that diffraction correction and chromatic aberration are now grayed out because they're done as part of this digital lens optimization. I do still have color blur and peripheral illumination, and what happens is when I tick these buttons, they go to what Canon consider to be perfect or optimum. So peripheral illumination correction, for example, if I take that off, you see that the corners of the image get darker because this lens on this camera, obviously the light is not hitting the corner pixels of the sensor quite as evenly, and that means that you're getting a little bit of corner shading or darkening. You're popping a little bit.
We've got some real audio issues there, David.
Have you really?
Yeah.
And notice. Just going to try and sort this out and see if is that any better?
No, it's still quite crinkly.
It's quite crinkly, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think we're back again.
Now, yeah, now it's gone. As we were then.
Oh, it's trying to return again, I think, by the sounds of it.
Let's have a right. This is the trouble with using a wireless mic. Right, hang on a second. Let me take that. How's that,
Kevin Nash?
Other than very loud.
just eating the mic. Yeah. Yeah. Just try that again for us.
Is that better?
Yes, it's better. Just a bit of reverb through the speakers,
fine.
But the sound's good.
I'll mute you now. There we go. Look at this. Honestly, it's because my fiance went out today. Normally, she looks after Otis while I'm doing live streams, and today she's gone out and he's just going absolutely nuts. So my neighbours are going to hate me later. There we go. Right. Okay. So where were we? So let's get back into DPP here. So when I turn this on, this gives me corner shading correction. So the image is the corners of the image are now brightened up. Now you don't use this all the time. Use it sparingly. It's potentially good for landscapes, potentially good for portraits, but we know that images with slightly darker corners can sometimes look a little bit better. They kind of suck you in a bit more. And what you may find is you turn peripheral illumination correction on, and then you put the image in Photoshop. You add in a creative vignette, which you could have just left this turned off. So, you know, it's up to you. I say use it, but don't use it every time as a matter of course. But for this one, I am going to put it on because I think otherwise it makes it a bit too dark in the corners, and I prefer that slightly more even tone. We've also got distortion correction down here, so I can correct for any pin cushioning or barrel distortion. So if I turn that on and off, you'll see that there's a little bit of distortion on this, and it's correcting for it. And again, that's correcting to Canon's version of optimum. Okay, and then we've also got sharpness again down here. Now, a little tip for this is if you turn off sharpness, then do your lens corrections, then turn it back on, there is a bit of a feeling that might give you a slightly finer result. Okay, so a little tip is turn it off, maybe turn your digital lens optimizer off as well. Get the digital lens optimizer on, then get the sharpness on, and you should see that is a little bit better, potentially. But this is like real pixel peeping level of detail. We've also got, if we go along to the next tab, we go along to the crop and rotate. So within crop and rotate, I've got a variety. If I zoom in here, I've got a variety of options, presets, or I can go for a custom or free. I can also rotate, and as soon as I start rotating, it won't help with this image, but you get a grid visible, and the grid allows us to, if we've got a horizon, obviously line the horizon up. Now in this, I'm just going to leave this at 0 because I think my legs were about even when I took this picture. There we go, and I'm not going to crop it because I quite like the crop that I've got as I went. Let's come down to the next one, which is here. We've got image detail, otherwise known as noise correction. So Canon give you some automatic noise correction as well. So in most cases, you can leave this as is. They do it very well. If you want to play around with it for both luminance and chrominance noise, you can. It's not something I ever use a lot of. Now this one here is for our curve adjustments. So if you like curves, this is where you're going to make curve adjustments. For example, if you wanted to put a little bit of an S curve on here, make it maybe look a little bit more filmic. I think that's probably going to be a bit too punchy. You notice that as I did that, we got a little bit of blue in here, telling me that they're now blocked out. So I'll turn that off. But you've got curves, and useful to know, this also works on TIFFs and JPEGs. So while this is for raw processing, if you want to put TIFFs or JPEGs in here, you can make use of this tab to make some adjustments. But you need to remember that it's additive. So if I make a brightness adjustment here, or a contrast adjustment, or I put a curve on, then it's going to do in addition to anything I did in that first tab that we started off in. Fortunately, though, you get to see what's going on. I won't spend too much time in here. We've also got image colors. So I said that DPP is predominantly a global editor. You'll notice that we've got color swatches, and we can adjust colors independently a little bit. So I can pick a color, maybe let's say the purples here, and if I change the hue, we'll see what happens. There's a little bit going on in the purples there. I actually think that's nicer, slightly towards the blue end. And maybe I'm going to take saturation up a little bit, just in those tones. So you should have noticed probably in this area here, as I made those adjustments, there was a little bit more saturation, and some of the purple moved just a little bit more to the blue. Obviously, we could work our way through all of these, but time is short, so I'm not going to do all of that. The last tab that I want to show you in here is dust spotting. Now, Canon give you the option of something called dust delete data, where you can take a picture of a white bit of paper or a grey card, and it will map where the dust is on the sensor. Sounds like a brilliant idea. In practice, doesn't work quite so well, predominantly because you end up with well, you end up turning the camera on and off, and when you turn the camera on and off, it then adjusts where the dust is, because it does a sensor clean, and because it's doing a sensor clean, you move dust around. So It's not something that many people use. I'm not a big user of it. I much prefer to get rid of dust later on. Oh, you just lost picture in picture. Let's bring you back again. So I will do my dust spotting here or in Photoshop. So the image will open. It's going to load. It will take a little bit of time to load in. You notice bottom right hand corner there. Possibly not because you can't see it. There we go. Let me put myself up here. Bottom right hand corner. We've just got this this little spinning wheel while it's loading in. Come back down here because it looks nicer. Now, we've got two options. We've got repair light and we've got repair dark. And I think we've got an image that doesn't have an awful lot of dust on it, which is ironic. But let me see if I can find something and show you what it does. So quite simply, repair light will repair any white dots, hot pixels, color noise, chroma noise, anything like that. And repair dark is better used for removing dark dust spots. And I'm literally just going around, and we have indeed picked an image where my sensor was pretty much clear. Now, it's considering we're looking at a portrait, it's important to say that this is very much about removing dust spots. It's not about removing wrinkles or skin imperfections or anything like that, although we can. So you'll notice here there's a little dip in the model's forehead. If I was going to repair light or repair dark, it would get rid of the color automatically. But I can also select copy source. So this is just like clone stamp. I can pick a point to repair from. So I've clicked that. Let me make that brush a little bit smaller. And I can now stamp that onto that area, and you should notice that that little dip has disappeared. But remember, it is a clone stamp effectively. So I wouldn't necessarily use this for this kind of thing, but to show you how it works, I guess it's indicative. Right, let's come back out. If you had used that dust delete data, it would be appended to every image you take, and then this box here would not be grayed out. You would be able to click this and it would automatically remove any dust spots that it has mapped. Okay, so that's the bulk of the tabs, the basic ones that you really need to know. So let's come out of here. We're happy with this image in terms of how it looks, and we really now need to start looking at printing. Okay, and I'm going to talk about printing in two different places, but using the same tool. So I've got, let's give you, here we go. Let's show you this. So I told you I've got a Canon, a Pixma Pro 1000. This is an A2 printer. You'll see that I was printing something earlier on. And this, when you buy a Canon printer and you're using Canon camera and you're using Canon Canon software, it kind of makes sense for your color calibration to try and stay within a Canon ecosystem, because they know exactly what is going on. And therefore, they provide a tool called Print Studio Pro. And Print Studio Pro basically gives you the ability to color calibrate or to keep your images looking as good as they possibly can straight off the bat. So, where are we going to start? Right, we've got our image. We're ready to print. So I'm going to come out of here. What you could do if you wanted to go into Photoshop to do extra work, Print Studio Pro works in there as well, and I'll show you that briefly at the end. But what we're going to do is we'll come up to File and we'll choose Plugin Printing and print with Print Studio Pro. Before I get there, I'm just going to quickly remind you that because these are raw files, I've made adjustments to this one. If I wanted to make adjustments to a bundle of images that were all shot with the same settings, I can copy. If I right click, I can copy the selected recipe, or I can select and copy recipe settings. So I can pick particular adjustments that I've made, and I can then apply them across a range of images. So batch editing effectively to try and, like, you might do this just to adjust exposure, and helps if I actually show you the screen. exposure or white balance, for example, you make adjustments to a bundle of images and you can apply it to all of them. So that was right click, copy recipe, or select and copy recipe settings here. You can pick the bits that you want to copy, even down to the lens corrections, or any rotation that you may have used, any of that, and then you can apply it across a sequence of images. Okay, so we're ready to export. We're ready to print this image. We're going to come up to the top right-hand corner. I'm going to File, and in File, I'm going to choose Plug-in Printing and Print with Print Studio Pro. Now, I noticed a question pop up. Erica, do Cambrian sell printers? This is going to be a really good time to embarrass Paul. Cambrian do sell printers. Let me put myself back on here. Hello, Cambrian do sell printers. And Paul would really like to sell 10 of these Pro 1000s because he's been promised a funky bit of kit if Cambrian do indeed sell 10. So please, if you're looking for a printer, go have a look, get in touch with Paul, and he will happily sell you a printer. Right, Angurin, do I use ProPhoto RGB color space or Adobe? Paul's, I thought you'd pop back in.
I'll let you answer that question, yeah, about the RGB color space.
Okay, so I tend to use Adobe RGB predominantly because monitors can't show ProPhoto. This is an ISO CG319X. It's pretty much one of the very best monitors you can possibly buy, and it shows 99% of Adobe RGB. ProPhoto is a bit bigger than that. It can be worth it, but you have to be right at the very cutting edge of what you're trying to do with imaging to see any real benefit. And given that a printer probably can't print ProPhoto either because it's a bigger color space, I see less benefit. So I tend to stick with Adobe RGB 98 and work in that color space.
Is that above and beyond sRGB as well?
Definitely above and beyond sRGB. sRGB is obviously your screen RGB, and that's a smaller color space than ProPhoto. So if you were going to put your images online so they're shown on screen, then go to sRGB because you're going to find less inconsistencies between monitors in sRGB. If you put an Adobe RGB image online, people can view it on a multitude of devices, and most screens will not get anywhere near showing Adobe RGB. And you will get color shifts and it can look horrible. So whenever I'm posting something online, I always convert it to sRGB. I have some little macros set up to prepare things for going online. And yeah, they get switched to sRGB for screen use. But printing, I stick with Adobe RGB.
That's brilliant. I will post in the comments as well links to the free printers. We are currently waiting for stock to come in, but hopefully that'll be very, very soon. But I will post a link in the description to the printers that we'll be looking at today as well. Thank you, David.
Okay, right. So plug-in printing was where we were at. So let me show you that again. We come up here, File. Did I already open plugin printing? I did. Print Studio Pro, I already clicked on it. Right, where's it got to? It has opened somewhere, and it has opened. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Print Studio Pro. Okay, brilliant. We have found Print Studio Pro. Here it is. So Print Studio Pro aims to make printing as simple as possible. So we start, and I'm repeating this again, with a calibrated monitor. If you haven't got a calibrated monitor, you stand no chance, okay? You'll just be chasing your tail. I say that, there's a little tool I'm going to show you in a minute that might help. So over on this left-hand side, we have got a variety of image information. So we can see various color spaces. Oh, this one's set to sRGB. I might actually just correct that. I'll go back into Adobe in a moment. We have got what printer I'm using. We can see all of the settings on that printer, various paper sizes and the like. We'll be changing a lot of this, but it's a good step to know exactly what's going on. You may have also noticed down here, color balance. Oh, come here. So color balance. There's ability to adjust within Print Studio Pro. So over on the right-hand side, it's very, very simple. Choose our printer. In this case, it's a Pixma Pro 1000. It's on Series 9. That's clearly where I've connected it. I am going to use Photopaper Pro Luster. Now, paper choice. This is a very personal thing. And there are lots of paper manufacturers. Hahnemuhle, Ilford, Canson, obviously Canon as well. One of the things about paper choice and about ink choice that's very important. If you've spent a lot of money buying a Canon printer and you've done that because they give you really good quality prints, you should probably make use of Canon ink as well. You don't, however, have to use Canon paper. You will miss out on a couple of things if you don't use Canon paper, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world. But using third-party inks is a false economy. I understand that Canon inks are not cheap, okay? But there's a reason for it. It's because they're very hard to produce. And they have two things over and above third-party inks that make it worth the money. Number one, they're incredibly finely filtered, so they don't clog up the really fine print heads on the printer. If you clog up the print heads, you end up with banding and scraping and basically ruined prints. Not a good idea. It's akin to getting a grain of sand stuck in the print head somewhere. Also, they have batch-to-batch consistency, which sounds very odd, and it sounds like a really marketing way of speaking. But what it means is if you buy a cyan ink today, and you buy a cyan ink for your printer next year, they will be identical in terms of their color. And that means that your color profiling works. If the ink is a different color, you cannot color profile unless you profile every time you put new ink in there, which is just a waste of ink and a waste of paper. Hence why it's a false economy to not use Canon inks. Okay, right. Let's get back to where we were. So Photopaper Pro Luster, paper size, I'm going to choose A2. It's in the rear tray. Print quality is going to be, I'm going to choose standard. Unless I'm doing prints that are for clients for sale, I tend to use standard. It actually just uses a little bit less ink. I could choose to clear coat the entire page. Now, some printers have what's called Chroma Optimizer. This Pro 1000 does. When you lay ink down on a page, you get peaks and troughs. And if you were to pick up a print, let me try and demonstrate. If you were to pick up a print and kind of look down it like this, yeah, you would see that there are different levels of glossiness. So that's where the ink is reflecting light differently. Now, this is very important on glossy prints, not so important on matte or fine art type prints or rag paper. But on glossy, it can make a difference because you get different levels of gloss. Clear coating puts Chroma Optimizer across the whole image. And that fills in all of those gaps. And by filling in all of those gaps, you get a uniform layer across the image and you get a uniform level of glossiness. So this is actually a luster paper. I'm not going to bother using the Chroma Optimizer, but we're going to talk about color management. So color management in here is very simple. We'll choose use ICC profile. There are a variety of options, but just go with ICC profile because if you've chosen the right paper and you have installed the profile for that paper, the third-party paper is available on the third-party manufacturer's websites. Occasionally Canon will have it as well. So you can get that without having to do the profiles yourself. Printer profile, we can choose auto. You may find in some cases that you will get the ability here, if you're using non-Canon paper, for example, you can choose third-party paper profile in here. And in terms of our rendering intent, we're going to choose perceptual, okay? Now, all of this is great, and I've mentioned color calibration of the screen, but we need to know what we're looking at. And I should probably give you some advice on how to calibrate your screen as well. So the guidelines are quite simple. When you calibrate your screen, the targets you want to go for are D50 or 5,000 Kelvin, which is kind of akin to daylight. If you set to D65, which is D6500, you'll find that your images look warmer and you therefore make them cooler. You want to set the brightness to between 80 and 120. Now, if all of this sounds like a bundle of numbers and you don't quite understand what it is, it will become clear when you get a color calibrator, because these are the settings that it'll ask you what you want to calibrate to. And you want a gamma of 2.2. Okay, so D50 or 5,000 Kelvin, gamma of 2.2, and a brightness between 80 and 120. It will be CD per meter squared, candela per meter squared. So they should be your screen calibration settings. Now, we've also got some layout options in here. So let me come back in here. I can choose bordered or borderless. If I had multiple images, I could do an index print, for example. So I could lay out a bundle of images and create an index print and be able to see everything that was going on, see all of my images all at once. In this case, I'm just going to choose bordered, and it will put it in the middle of the page for me. I don't have to worry about the margins. They're set automatically. If I want to move them around, I absolutely can. But in this case, I'm not going to bother. Andrew, I've just seen a question come up. Andrew, how, if you want to use the printer application as a finishing step, are there optimum settings to export the photos from your editing app? So coming out of DPP, if I know that I'm going to print my images, in this case, I'm printing raw, but if I want to do extra work in Photoshop, for example, I will take the image out into Photoshop as a 16-bit TIFF file so that I've got as much data as I can possibly have. I'll then do all of my work in 16-bit TIFF. And from there, I can export through Photoshop, and I'll show you that when we're done with this one. I will show you that you get exactly the same export options with plugin printing in Photoshop, because this plugin from Canon doesn't just work through DPP, but it also works through Photoshop and Lightroom as well. So, Andrew, hopefully that answered your question. Okay, now there's also color settings, so we can make adjustments here. Now I'm going to come back here into the printer settings, and if I have a color calibrated monitor, I can choose enable soft proofing. So if I hit enable soft proofing, based on the profile that I'm using and how the printer is set up, it gives me an idea on screen as to what that's going to look like. So if I turn that on and off, you should see that it's making a difference. It's showing me what that print is going to look like. Now, at this point, I can go into the color settings and I can make adjustments. I can change the brightness, I can change the contrast, I can adjust color balance in terms of cyan, magenta, or yellow, and I can even adjust curves if I wanted to. In fact, I can adjust curves of independent color channels. So there's quite a lot of advanced editing directly in here, just to make sure with a soft proof that the print is going to come out exactly as you expect it. Now, I told you there is a way without a color calibrated monitor. It's a little bit of a workaround, but it's this thing down here. It's called pattern print. If I click this pattern print, what it's going to do is, there we go. It's going to give me a layout of that image with a whole bunch of different settings. So I can choose print in all directions, or I can choose print towards red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, or magenta. And this gives me a pattern of, you know, let's say, I don't know, I printed this out, and when I got the print, I said, well, actually, this one looks really nice as a print. So that's cyan -5, magenta +10, yellow -5. I could then go into, if I come out of here, I could then go into here, I could make that adjustment, and I know that that's exactly how that print is going to look when I do the actual print. So that's a really good way, if you don't have a calibrated monitor, to get an idea of what the print is going to look like. Obviously, it does mean you've got to do 2 prints, so you are using paper and ink, but you know exactly what that print is going to look like when you print it as the final export. Okay, so that's a really useful export. Now, all of this is now set up. I'm happy with all of my settings. I think the print looks okay. What I'm going to do is I will Andrew, great, brilliant. You use Lightroom. So this plugin will work out of Lightroom for you. Okay, so I'll show you out of Photoshop in a moment, but it works out of Lightroom as well. Now, I'm literally going to hit print. Now, what's important is it'll give me a pop-up box. We can make this go, but I like the reminder. It says the print dialog is going to appear. Just make sure that you don't change anything. Okay, so make sure it's set to standard or literally default settings. Okay, so I hit OK. My print dialog appears. Here it is. If I choose to show details, it's on default settings. I don't want to pick any presets or do anything like that. I just want it because the plugin is handling the color. And I hit print. And when I hit print, if I now give you, let's give you this view, we should see that it's going to start processing over and that image will start to print out. Let's make sure that the printer's awake. There we go. Right. Now that's going to start printing and it'll take a little bit of time. Obviously, we are printing a full A2, we're printing a full A2 picture. It is bordered, admittedly, but still it's going to take a little bit of time. And you can see here that it said it's got the image. Now notice I've actually got some warnings on this because I'm running low on ink. One of the great things about this Pro 1000 is that it seems to go on forever. You know, it can be saying low ink, but don't change your print, your ink cartridges immediately. Keep going until it's pretty much gone. Because these seem to last forever. The ink tanks are big, they're not cheap, but they just print for a very, very, very long time. Okay, so we're going to just give this a few moments, let it actually get in, make sure that all is working, and hopefully, there we go, it's started. Right, so I can quit out of this now. So I'm going to come out of here. Now, let's say that I wanted to, print an image that had gone into Photoshop. So I don't know, let's say we've done a portrait of this girl who, incidentally, it's her birthday today. This model I photographed. Let's go for, let's open up this one. And this is in Bridge, by the way. I'm going to open it in Photoshop. Now, I've made some minor adjustments to this image in Photoshop. I've probably removed some dust spots. I've done a little bit of contrast. It looks very punchy on your screen. I can see that. I promise it does not look that punchy in real life or on my screen. It's obviously just the way it's coming through. So, you know, I know that I'm happy with this image. I know that it looks how I want it to look. So up here, if I come up to the top right hand corner, File, Automate, scroll down a little bit, Dave, there we go. Canon Print Studio Pro, so the same plugin that we were just using in DPP, we can now use in Photoshop as well. So click Canon Print Studio Pro. Guess what? It's going to look, when it loads, exactly the same. So the plugin is identical. It doesn't matter whether you access it through Print Studio Pro, through Lightroom or Photoshop or DPP. It does exactly the same. You've got all of the same layer options over here. You've got all of the same print settings. It is the identical plugin. It literally is just a port through to the same app. Okay, and we can do all of the same stuff in terms of our soft proofing and the like. So that then, again, I can soft proof, make sure it looks good, and I can hit print. So this print is coming out here. You can see it coming out. Now, when you are viewing a print, it's important that you're viewing it under appropriate conditions, because if you're not viewing it under appropriate conditions, then you're not looking at it under the conditions that you set your monitor for. So you calibrated your monitor to 5000 Kelvin or daylight, okay? So you should therefore view your print when it's printed under daylight or 5000 Kelvin. So the lights that I have here in the studio, in my workshop are the ones that I'm firing at this are 5,000 Kelvin. The camera is set to 5,000 Kelvin as well on its white balance, the one that you're looking at. So hopefully it's about as close as it can be, obviously within the realms of what a camera can do. But you should remember that when you're printing, that you want it to be, you want to look at your prints under a daylight light source, a 5,000 Kelvin light source. Now, there we go. Let's lay that down there where you can see it. I don't know what you all think of that. Does that look pretty good to you as a print? I'd say it probably wasn't super complex in terms of what we had to do. There was no black magic involved in making this work. Let me hold this up here. Oh, no, that way, Dave. There you go. Hopefully, I think it was Lorraine that wanted to work on this image. So now you're seeing a print of it, Lorraine. How does that look? Would you be happy with that print? Bear in mind that was printed directly from RAW with no adjustment in Photoshop. Would that work for you guys? I don't know. Hit up the comments and let me know. Okay, so we are kind of coming to the end of the workshop, but I'm going to quickly tell you about the printers, the ones I think you should look at. So this was the Pro 1000 that you can see here. The other ones in the Pixma Pro range that this plugin works for will be the Pro 1, which is a slightly older printer. It's an A3 Plus. You've also got the Pro 10S and the Pro 100S. And the difference is that one is a pigment ink and one is a dye-based ink. So one is a bit more suited for glossy prints. One is a bit more suited for fine arty and monochrome prints. They're both A3 printers or A3 Plus printers. I use the Pro 1000. It is my weapon of choice because once you've printed big pictures like an A2, it's highly addictive, highly addictive for having having prints that size. A3 and A3 Plus suddenly seems a wee bit too small. So there we go. They're the printers, as I say, Pro 1000, Pro 10S, Pro 100S, and the Pro 1. And decide how big you want to print, decide whether you're doing glossy or whether you're doing predominantly more black and white, fine art, papery type stuff, and make your choice appropriately. So, okay, there we go. Let's come back here. And I'm going to wrap it up with a quick run through. So this is going to be the super quick run through of everything we covered as a recap so that you know. So we had raw processing, which was DPP. And I showed you the benefits of DPP and explained why I think it's a really great solution for processing your Canon RAW files. Things like the Canon lens corrections, all of that kind of jazz. Then we looked at Print Studio Pro, which is the free plugin that Canon provide. So we're still dealing with free software, DPP being free, and Print Studio Pro being free with the printers. And we looked at all the settings. And to give you the quick recap, we were using the ICC profile. We'd chosen our paper type, and we're using the Canon inks and Canon papers, and that meant that all the calibration is done for us. We chose our paper type. Printer profile was set to auto. Rendering intent was perceptual. We soft proofed, but we didn't make any adjustments based on the soft proof because it looked great. And that was all because we calibrated our good monitor at the start to the known values of D50 or 5,000 Kelvin, a gamma of 2.2 and a brightness of between 80 and 120 CD per meter squared. And I think that's pretty much most of the key things. I also told you to put a light behind your monitor bouncing off a wall at a low level, and to control the light in your room and view your prints under 5,000 Kelvin lights. And there we go. I could have done this workshop in about 30 seconds.
Oh, that's brilliant, Dave. Thank you very much.
Before you say anything, Paul, question, will Print Studio Pro work as a plugin for Capture One? It won't work as a plugin for Capture One, but if you export from Capture One into Photoshop, for example, as I showed you, you can access it from there as well.
And it's Print Studio Pro is it's a standalone program as well, isn't it? So you can not only sort of use it sort of in the plugin sense, but you can use it as a standalone as well if you wanted to.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Nice, nice, quick, straightforward answer there. I love it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what else do I need to say?
No, it's just a yes, isn't it? So
It's a yes. It's a standalone product. What I'm going to quickly try and do while you're talking, Paul, don't wrap me off just yet.
no,
I'm going to try and find, because several people wanted to see Otis. So, I don't know. Should we? There we go. There's here is Otis.
Oh,
this is Otis. He's my Hungarian Vizsla. There we go. Steve says, received the Pro 1000 today from Cambrian. Well, that was good timing, wasn't it? My thinking is the process and print using Lightroom only. You're good to go. You are good to go.
yes.
While we're talking, I'm going to find you another Otis because I can.
That's brilliant. Yes, a lot of information to absorb there from David. Wonderful having you here. This live video is available to rewatch as well. So if you need to go back over any points, it is available to rewatch on our Facebook and YouTube pages. So you can go back and sort of pause and follow through any of the bits that you wanted to, if you find that useful. Just before we wrap up, if you've got any more questions,
I'm putting Otis up.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, people want to see more pictures of that, of lovely Otis there. It's lovely to see. Just hitting towards the comments again. We've had our very own Sarah Jones asking John, who is our Canon representative, can we possibly get Dave into the shop for a workshop? So I'm sure we can. I'm sure we can sort something out there. If we keep pushing John to get something sorted, that'll be brilliant. And also followed by
side, as soon as it is safe, to get into a shop and do some workshops, I will be there with bells on. And I noticed I could be tempted with cake. I might even bring cake if you're really lucky.
Oh yeah, I mean we'll never say no to receiving cake, but also we have very famous lemon cake in North Wales as well. So
I know you do. I've heard about your famous lemon cake. It is famous.
I love how it's one of the main talking points of anything that we do. We just bribe people with lemon cake.
Do you know? Really ironic. We can just chat for a bit now before we disappear. I've just literally in the last minute figured out the audio issue.
what was
My
it?
brain's been racking away the audio while we had the echo, and I've just worked it out. So all sorted now.
Fair enough. What else did we have in the comments?
Sarah says, a Paul Sanders and me. I'd be more popular if I brought Otis. Otis is definitely prettier than me, David. You are absolutely right. Yes. And I am sure we could do a workshop with Paul. Paul's a very good friend of mine. We've often talked about doing some landscape workshops together. So I'm sure we might be able to make that happen as well. We could possibly work on that.
That's it. You're hearing it first, people. It's a good place to get the latest news and updates. And Erica's going a bit crazy there as well. She'll be loving a workshop like that as well. So let's see what else we've had in the comments. Just loads of thank yous, and we also had something from Lorraine as well, saying wonderful print there as well. So that's nice. We'll be able to do that for you. That we could show you that picture, which I thought would be quite tricky to print because of the color, but obviously once you've got everything sorted and calibrated, it becomes a relatively easy process.
So if we can get this workshop going, what you'll hopefully learn is that I am all about making things as simple as possible, because I think people massively overcomplicate photography. And the truth is, this is actually a very simple process. You just have a few little steps to follow, you follow those steps and it becomes very, very simple. But that's true of all of photography, right? Photography is about problem solving and problem solving on the fly. And as long as you've got a few basics covered, it gets ever so much easier, particularly working with tools that have been designed for photographers to be sensible, like Print Studio Pro, or DPP.
No, that's brilliant, and obviously even simpler when we don't need to tackle with the virtual side of things as well, Dave.
Absolutely, yes. It's so much simpler without virtual. But hey, virtual's fun. We like virtual.
Certainly is.
I actually quite enjoy these virtual workshops, and actually this has been really enjoyable having you involved as well, Paul. So thank you very much.
Oh well, thank you very much, and it's been a big pleasure having you here as well. Oh, don't get me started.
I need whoever did your haircut. I need them to do mine.
I'm going to put a hat on in a minute.
Maybe they can go lighter on the clippers around here.
Steve, I'm glad you got your printer sorted. I know we had a bit of problems actually getting it to you, so thank you for bearing with us while we got it to you. And obviously, if you have any questions, just hook us up and we can make sure we can get everything running for you. Big thank you to Dave for being here with us today. It's lovely to have you and lovely being live as well. Thank you very much, Dave. I'll put you back in the green room for a little bit and we'll just have a quick speak after the go live.
We get to have a debrief. Sorry, folks, you don't get to join us on that, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you. A few thanks to say thank you all for joining, giving up your Friday afternoon when, if it's anything like here, it's quite a nice afternoon. You could have been outside, maybe getting rid of fresh air. So thank you all for giving up your afternoon and joining us. And I'm glad you enjoyed it and found it informative. And I look forward to seeing you all either on another virtual workshop or actually in the shop sometime in the not too distant future.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dave. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes. A couple of technical difficulties, as always, with anything that we do regarding printing when we go live by the looks of it. So, but we got through there, and hopefully you can go back and rewatch any of the sections that you've missed. Please keep an eye out for the next go live. Me and Joel will be going live with news and updates, which will be this Saturday at 4 p.m. With the big sort of news that we're going to be talking about is that we sort of had the go ahead from the Welsh government to reopen. So we'll be discussing a little bit about how the shop is going to be reopening and what we're going to be doing to make that happen for you as well. So we'll be giving you an update on that tomorrow afternoon. If you're watching live, that this will be tomorrow afternoon from now. If you're rewatching this, you can always comment below, and we can get to the questions after the fact, and hopefully get some questions answered for you. Once again, if you're rewatching this or watching live, if you're watching on Facebook, please make sure that you like our page and like the video, share wherever you can. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and click the notifications so you get more notifications on when we go live. Thank you everyone for watching. I've lost my words again today, and we'll see you again tomorrow.